Good morning and welcome back to Vermont. Today is going to be kind of a multi-part video beginning a project to build a new antenna for what I call is Northern Command, and show you a couple sketches of what's going on existing, what's there now, and what I hope will be there after we finish this project. So I've got a camp up north, deer camp, if you will, and there's a CB antenna up there at the moment, and the use of the CB, at least here in New England, around Vermont in particular, outside of the trucking world, maybe it's different even in the trucking world, but it's very quiet and it's not used as much anymore. So recently, within the last few years, got licensed in ham radio, and I'm really enjoying that hobby and the ability to contact people and still enjoy the radio with ham radio. So what I plan to do is install a ham radio combination antenna up at camp, up at Northern Command. And I want to retain the CB antenna just in case there's ever traffic there, sort of nostalgia and link to the past with a lot of neighbor camps up in the area. So that's what I'm working on. You can see in the sketch, I'll explain what's there now, as I said, and what we hope will be there after we finish up. Okay, so here's a picture of Northern Command. There's a lot of official business that gets conducted here, official meetings, and a lot of life planning happens here. And it's difficult to see, but right above the front door is that tripod and CB antenna I was discussing earlier. So here's the location. This is last December, Pearl Harbor Day, December 7th of 2023. And here's the view looking out front, the front yard. And again, so some of these pictures I used on my channel backdrop. It's a special place. And again, just hoping to increase the level of communication up there in case things get bad. It's also a nuclear fallout shelter, so it'll be handy to have increased communications via UHF, VHF, and HF, possibly Morse code services. So that's my goal. Okay, so here's a hand sketch of Northern Command. There's a roof-mounted tripod, antenna bracket, and from there's a 10-foot mast, and clamped with U-bolts to the top of that mast is a 21-foot SolarCon CB antenna, probably a mid-90s vintage. And I want to retain that in place, or I want to retain use of it, I should say. I'm going to reconfigure its location. So that's what's there now. And here's what sort of a sketch of a proposal. It looks a little bit complex, but if you can imagine removing that 10-foot mast and putting in place this new configuration into the same tripod. So there'll be, again, a 10-foot mast in the center that goes out with a T welded to the top of it, and some angle brackets left and right that extend beyond the T and provide a stub well enough to secure the CB antenna that was previously in location, now moved over to the left side. And at the right side, still in design mode. I don't know how much more elevation I'll install. At least one more 5-foot or 10-foot section of 1-inch EMT on the right. And to the top of that, a UHF VHF combination ham antenna, ham radio antenna. And just underneath that location, where it says dipole pulley, I'll weld on a bracket with a pulley in place, and I'll sling some 550 cord over that pulley down to the ground so that I can hoist up and lower for service an HF antenna, which is a long wire or a dipole wire from there. So this is kind of my brainstorm of what I'm after, and we'll see how close to that or how much deviation from this plan where we end up. Okay, so I think what I'm going to use, here's a 10-foot piece of 1-inch EMT, galvanized, and I've got some of this kicking around poles from a tetherball set, Wilson type, you know, backyard game extra, and I think one of those pieces will be good for the tee. And then these J poles I picked up at Home Depot, and I plan, as the sketch said, to come off the main mast and reach out and brace the tee where my hand is, weld that in, and then this stub that sticks up here, that will provide a good area to clamp on the CB antenna. And conversely, on this side, you can go up from there with another section of EMT, weld that together, and I think that'll provide stability. This, you don't have to use this brand. I bought top of the line genuine lead zoom J-pole with 3 bars. It's the best you can buy. I spared no expense on that. It's generation 1. Okay, so this is going to be pretty standard throughout. I'm not a fabricator professional at all, as you can tell, but you're going to need, you know, V-notch all of the joinery. You can see here I'm just starting at the top of the main mast to put the T in place. And then moving over, I just marked the center of where the T will be and fixtured that up with a magnet tacked in place and measured everything. And then I proceeded all the way around with the weld and finished that up. So there's sort of a picture of what that looks like. And then I prepped each of the elbows. You can see notched the end of the T there. Took the paint off the J-bar and positioned where I thought that should be, and tacked that in place and continued welding around. I made a goal of welding completely around, and some of the gaps I had to fill in quite a bit in this process. I just wanted to make sure there would be no water ingress into the seam. So here's a picture with the 2 J-bars installed. It was a bit tricky to get the alignment correct so that the gusset area at 45 degrees pointed back, generally aligned back to the center mast, and that the stub areas extending beyond the T were roughly the equal length and in a plumb and level direction. It looks like the one on the left wasn't quite exact, but hopefully I can make that up with the U-bolts when I clamp on the antennas, maybe a shim or 2. It was a bit tricky working one-handed with no fixturing outdoors on a wooden table, but it did the best I could. And here is me measuring the gusset, you know, using the scrap of that tetherball set, roughly measuring out the angles and cut lines where I need to extend the gussets and put those in place. And this process was similar for both sides. Tried to be symmetrical. I'll try to show you some of the welding here. Kind of at the limits of the reach of my welder in the leads, so it's going to look awkward. Wrangler Star, I watched his videos years ago, and he said if you want to get all kind of comments on YouTube, show yourself welding. I've never forgot that. I'm not a pro at this. Okay, so here's what I ended up with after, maybe an hour, hour and a half welding. Apologize you couldn't see much of that active process. I tried to share some pictures of the progress as I went. Pretty new to this still, and I don't have all the equipment for filming, but I will show how poor of a welding job I did. But it's not going to go anywhere. I'll clean it up and fill it with 1/4 inch paint. So I think it will do the job. Again, you can kind of get the idea. If you imagine the base of this will be installed in a tripod, and as we get up top, as you saw in the sketch, out at the left side will be the CB antenna, and off the right side I'll have another taller EMT mast extension up to the ham radio equipment from there. Sorry my audio keeps cutting out. I'm not sure the reason of that. If you have recommendations on good cameras and audio equipment to use for YouTube, please leave it in the comments. I'd appreciate that. Just getting started, and what I've got isn't working, and making mistakes. You can see I'm still filming in portrait rather than landscape, so I'll get better. The last things I need to do is weld on a ground stud for the lightning protection and the ground cable. So that's what I'll work on now. Well, that's going to finish up part 1 of this series. There's a little ground lug I talked about, just painting up the welds, at least with the first coat of paint. Probably come back and hit them again. So there it is. Don't forget Mystic Monk coffee. Not sponsored the video, but it's good coffee. And I thought this was interesting. Some of you may have noticed the symbol. I didn't mean this. But that symbol is very close to what is used on a schematic when you have an antenna in a circuit. I thought that was pretty interesting. So we'll see. This is part 1. At least going to be one more part regarding the other mast, which will be on this side, north of the coffee pot. That'll be for the VHF, UHF, and HF antennas, combination mast, and the CB will go over there. As they say around here, welcome to Vermont. Thank you for visiting, and thank you for watching. Please close the door on your way out.